The wheel we had got caught in the spokes again, and we spoke about it at length between the caverns and the towers, and somehow the dungeon got itself shook up a bit in a tizzy, and so we had to weigh those pressures against the pressing face against the great fence until the bars pushed our skin red, but we still could not pass through. I divided my hourglass separately until I began again, and then continued doing it all along and anon, but none the warehouse could espy me of the tiny little residue left within me. It was 2 marks, full throttle to the wind, I'm afraid, in Bowery cubes and little slotted lots of beef that steals spine for the summer, but do not dare to stop when the sun runs cold. And what good could it possibly do to forsake those channels of rain and runnels of sweat when you could rather boat yourself back in time to the forefather double feature and fray each rope in advance, the better to ensnare your hide-a-bed peekers and peekaboo creatures that crack up from the soil on the long summer night and cast sporulation into the wind stream each morning, noon and night, all on a dare, as I understand it, from frightened bullfrog beepers, a sort of lieutenant who, in lieu of rent, paid his landlord in martyred feet and dried out pudding bottles. I once saw a man enfold an entire jar of Crisco in the back of his sandals and went from one long frog leg to another on the back of his own mantle. Hand to God. I once saw the hand of God strike the wind from a sandal-legged frog with a folded-up mantle of Crisco jars, but he had to get back before long anyway, so I suppose I only sort of saw it. I didn't drag my nails to the crypt that night, officer. Honest. I just placed them in my portable potentiator that flew them all the way to the Queen of England automagically, and she unfortunately was no longer among the living by the time of their arrival. So we had to take stock of our tackle and try to come up with the sound solution. A pile of fire and a tiny jar of clouds we keep in the freezer so it doesn't dry out. I had to slot a gross incursion into my nether sanctum, and we prayed as we inhaled the ether of our outrage. In the standard model of natural distinction, we come to flay our friends and neighbors if they get too close to the outlandish firebonding we had pulled rascal and founded a new munitions missionary service, seeking out the last of the bred Morlocks from beneath the earth, funneling them into fish fantasies involving violet kelp and recidivist block parties in the noon of the summer that month, like a lot of floss-serenading drop hatches we all used to know. Bent in a haze, Commandant, give us a haft, and there was a certain heft to it, by which time we had emulsified and repressurized the pressers, pushed my stress to a second level much more elevated than the elevator berated. So we squelched the antenna and pressed the stressors, and before too long we wrecked the vessel and sped on, sledding on fronds of wheat and piles of puddles into a well-wavering obelisk battalion, a bullion cube of braille geldings and cream that was so brulee we jumped into a brisket bidet to spray our wealth to the 5 winds, and the boil burned, but the simmering sludge seemed so sudden that we baked our hearth back to 5 nether spandrels and spaniel racketeers. But I had a large map that slanderous racketeering scandal that slapped so damn hard our braces popped off, goddammit. Have a sort of hacking cough. We can probably drop 6 of the charges then. We had charged ourselves forward and backward for so long, we bracketed 6 slots of the coming collapse before we even grasped it. We had stuffed our turtle shell with raw emulsion all along, a slender scab picked at for 7 sores until all the skin revealed the terrible truth. Claw marks made the man, and markers squelch in the poster-board boat flotilla like a mote of dust in the eye of the clawed mark. I made a madman out of belches and fretting pens, and Ponce pomade we stuffed into the hair claws of the backwoods emulsion, expelled from the demolition demotions and emotional belfry commotions, made commendable by corrective capital in the moat dredging sledge, baffles and bevelments left level in the expenditures of the recommendation engine, most popular amongst the open source, topical, sedimentation divestiture, declensions, and defenestration implementations. That is just solid science and oak inoculation, and we all prayed kissingly in the dark for a more naked recompensement, because what else were we to do in such a nude fashion as to wear the style of our forebears, bearing 4 fail levers and leaf sailors in a husky kitsch cadaver slice meter? Isn't that what our failure to evaporate eventually indicates to a neutral arbiter? Or no? So the other night, my slide demon was basically putting Porta Potty on lock with its methylated exterior and quasi-particulate mode of being. She slaked her rocks hard at the mule birthing kiosk until we became far more frail than the pale method and banked lanky shark worming in a heart fossil. That is how we learned to break the beads into little muffin curlicues and cruciform praxis, ambits, and basin bassinets, and bleed blockers and blood beakers, and we had a laugh at the collapse of the rind minders, and the round mounders, and the reed bleeders, and Rome blenders bonding over every bane of every morn, and mourning every mound, and meaning every mote of modality, and boat of botality, and slope of slopeality, and moping about like a photo ring mount, like a light loop, and a blight hoop, and a fuel cell, and a dual dope, and we shape shifters, and big bifters, and Blake lifters, and we had sure lots of banded about bards, and Bartleby scones, and cone milks, and wealth cokes, like a bespoke broth, and brewing clues, and that's when the star car marked it, and barked out nurtured birds, and blurred out baking bones, and boating bays in a ursine blend of howled blood and healed bread. The canyon craved caves to cavitate the cavities, and crowed loud about bowel levers and bell bleeding, like having a sharp shape to shave into it with. I had rinsed and rinsed, so I knew a lot about bartering with birthers and flat earthers, and breathers, and broth brewers, and fool fasteners, and fiend filers, and we had paid to expedite the might of the royal rude. The broiled brood broadened their modern maidens, and it worked well to the good for the wooden brothers, and it welled up in the welkin like a smelted welding and a velvet gelding, and a golden bell seemed like an emotional boat. Ocean hell. So we drowned in nails, and frowned at flailing, whale-pounding ground hounders. Sound flounders finding more wetness in the sorrow than the whale angels did investing in the morrow. It's well known how slammed down the frowns could grow to get in the night times of the fight rhymes. And the bite cramps as clamped down shard on the frigate Martians, and paddle portions, and motion scandals, and scamps, scrimping on the brink of a doily fink, and a boiled mink stole, which we had stolen from the fallen fowl, the parted poultry, the emotion coaster that posted most, but felt foul frequently. Handing my feet a glove, I socked it to me, banking the spray and using it to fall foul of the potion mortars, and blasting cap craving slap braving boasters, and moat tasters, and crimp blandishments. That's why these cave boys love to eat raw shrimp, and if it's living, it's giving. That's how the bull buddies bounce when they chomp that shellfish and shred the velvet lining of their delving hiding and mind-winding wounds that wind around their brining of the shrieking trek of the undetermined deck warriors and the non-recurrent tech blurrier, neck-furried murderer, hurling whirligig birders who get sick of their hurts and splurt out their clergy furriers and murder burgeoning braiders and furrowed fake frivolity favorers and maiden glades of hate perfidy probes and probity performance, parade palliatives and malleable scam blandishment commensalism economists writ large and barging in on the script they had printed at the bandshell brooch blister. Christmas, crating, committee, panel, delimiter, bridges and badge broadeners, gull durned, goatery kendall cramping aside, and all whisks to the ready, as far as my mind can make it be bloody, good eating and frog bludgeoning, squeakin' and squawk, scattering clouds around 3, moving west by twilight, as the rain pelts your porridge and makes more mucilage out of your belts. 5 times 3 is most what people did say at that time. Moon God eats your brains before long. Good night, my fried fish lobster locations, and don't forget to remember to not get caught pooling lawn chairs in your magistrate's crate box location at noon. For the penalties can be swift and irrevocable. You have thus, Zoli, been warned and warmed up slowly for a veteran's box bucket. Don't say I didn't slay you in a court of slaw.